I'm an independent knitwear designer who also likes to make knitting videos here on Watch Barbara Knit. I have been fighting with my stand that is currently holding my phone. And as you can see, we are vertical today, which I never really do, but it is what it is. Very high probability, like what it just did is the whole thing like tumped over. So if it just randomly starts looking at the ground, I'll try to fix that. I am using my phone to do this broadcast. So what I have to do is actually, I have on a slight delay, I am watching myself on one of my tech supports, Defensive Pens iPad, which I really don't do Apple products, so I'm not 100% on it. So that is where, so I can read what y'all are talking about. So hello, Elizabeth. Thank you for joining us. And Brian Wilson in Bethesda, Maryland. Thank you for joining me again. I've seen you bunches. Hello. Looks like Milagro Nieves. Hello, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Sally Thibodeau, good evening from Louisiana. You really don't have to say Louisiana with a name like Thibodeau, do you? Thank you all so much for joining me. I am confident that this particular live stream is going to be even less focused than normal because we are really looking at what is today's date, the 29th. So we are less than a month away from packing absolutely everything we own into several different vehicles and driving for 5 days across the country. Now, this will overlap on the last Thursday of June, so it's really gonna depend whether or not I can do a live stream. It might be like from a hotel room in Nebraska, someplace. I don't know. North Dakota? I have no idea. We have scheduled, my husband is working on getting us hotel rooms, and that's a whole fiasco in and of itself. Hello, Jazz in rainy Colorado Springs. Colorado Springs is a really cool place that I want to visit. I am so glad you called me too, Milagro. If you have any questions, we are all for knitting questions. Hey, Wheel Trish, I am so excited that you're here too. I know that your life is just as chaotic, and I'm glad you made time. I'm glad all of you made time in it for me. I am moving. Well, the last time I moved was 8 years ago. I moved from Atlanta here to Florida between my son's elementary school and middle school. So we moved between 5th and 6th grade, and we have been here for 8 years, well, from 2018. So 19, 20, 21, 22, 3, 4, 5. So 7 years, somewhere in the 7 to 8 year range is how long we have been here in Florida. My son graduated from high school, not last week, but the week before. So he is completely done. And now it is time to go on another adventure. This time it is a huge, huge move. I have lived in many, many different places on essentially the eastern part of the United States. I lived in Indiana. I lived in South Carolina. I lived in the Chicago area. I lived in the New York area, New York area. And I lived in a rural area just outside of Atlanta. And then I lived in Atlanta for 20 years. And then we moved here. So we've I've gotten a lot of that taken care of, and we're gonna move all the way to the other coast. We're really moving from West Coast to West Coast because I'm on the West Coast of Florida. So West Coast to West Coast, and it's gonna be a huge change, and I'm excited to do something different, It's gonna be very different knitting weather. Okay, hello, Karen. Did I say hello already? Elizabeth, you're getting old. You thought it'd been 4 years. Time just flies, doesn't it? It goes absolutely woo. Yes, the E-Man, Wilderish. The E-Man has graduated. He graduated with honors. I'm incredibly proud of him. He received a couple of different awards. One of the awards that he received was something given to Florida students, where if your SAT is a certain level and your ACT is a certain level and your GPA is a certain level, then you get this, and I can't remember what it's called, but the reward for it is there is pretty much he has automatic acceptance into any of the public Florida state universities, any of the state run colleges and universities. If he wanted to go to one, he would be automatically accepted. Now, none of them really do what he wants them to do, which is one of the reasons we're moving. But the fact that he even got that, I'm super, super proud of him. He was in the top 20% of his class. He's a good guy. He's a good guy. I'm very proud of him. Let's see here. Milagro, my take on a sensitive subject. So I would love to hear your request, and if I feel I can speak to it, I will, but I reserve the right to be like, that might be a little bit too much, but please let me know what your question is. So, okay, what's my take on people who change 1 or 2 stitches in a pattern and then say it's yours? Well, it depends on what you mean by saying it's yours. If you mean by saying it's yours, if someone buys one of my patterns and they customize it, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna, instead of this texture stitch you hear, I'm gonna substitute seed stitch and stuff like that. And then when they're talking to their friends, they're like, oh yes, this is my special one, this is my custom one. That's just fine. I mean, I fully have the expectation, and that is one of the amazing things about knitting, is that you can take a pattern and make it fit whatever is your wants and needs are. And in customizing it, you have made it your own. You have made it your own special version. Now, taking the pattern and changing a few stitches, then publishing it as a separate paid for pattern, saying it's yours, like that way. I can't say I'm a huge fan of that. It is not something I would ever do, because I feel that if I did that, it would put my own personal integrity at question for my creativity and my designs. I wouldn't want to risk the reputation I have built as a designer by essentially copycatting someone else's pattern and presenting it as my own, because I think that would damage my personal reputation. But if they were to rewrite it in their own words, excuse me, if they were to rewrite it in their own words, because the only thing that I have copyright, that a designer has copyright on, is the actual written instructions or the chart or any illustrations that you've made. If they can write the instructions in a different way that produces the same visual effect, there's nothing illegal about that. There is no infringement about that. There's nothing the designer can do about that. And frankly, it would be kind of silly to try, because the amount of money it would cost you to prosecute that kind of thing or to sue for that sort of thing would just be ridiculous. But again, there's nothing illegal about it. But doing that, I think, would put you in the position of people questioning your integrity as a designer. So that's, but I mean, again, if it's just me, it's just like you yourself, and you took one of my shawls and you put your own little spin on it, you change the shape of everything, you do whatever you want. You paid for the pattern. It's your pattern now, and it is your finished piece. And if that finished piece is different than what I designed, then you could be like, yeah, I used this as a base. It's kind of like taking a recipe, and like if I made a recipe for chocolate cake, and then you decided that you also wanted to put like some sort of boozy cherry thing going on in there, then it's, it's your recipe now because you've added something to it. One of my favorite creators is this a lovely Vietnamese woman who does great videos, and she says, if you substitute something, it's not my recipe anymore, it's yours. Don't come complaining to me. So I find that amusing. So I don't know if that helped or answered your question. So you see it as intellectual theft. The problem is that the definition of intellectual theft is different in different countries. And in certain countries, I think the laws about it in France are much stricter about intellectual property, much stricter because they protect the arts a great deal more. And in different countries, yes, you definitely could. I'm just talking from the point of view of somebody who lives in the United States. And in the United States, knitting, crocheting, sewing, all of those things fall under the specific category of useful items. And so useful items cannot be copyrighted, like the concept of them, the visual appearance of them. Now, places where there is wiggle room, and I have a whole video on this, but places where there is wiggle room is like if you made a sweater and created your own art and made your own character, and it's the art, and you put the art on your sweater, the art itself is protected. That is why if you put like not Mickey Mouse anymore because he's passed into public domain, but if you put who's going to sue you? Well, Disney is pretty much the one that's going to sue you. If you put a more recent Disney character on, we're in Lilo and Stitch. If you put Stitch on a thing, Disney can sue you because it's the artwork. There's also, when you're getting into crochet, people who make what are considered sculpture, and I guess to an extent also some of the more fancier knitted ones, the stuffed animals that are considered, they're not considered useful objects. They fall under the category of soft sculptures, and they can be intellectual property copyrighty kind of situation because they are considered then art and not useful object. So that's where the line is drawn in the United States. So, M-U-R-N-E, Murn, is that your name? Where in Indiana and South Carolina? So I kind of just ran through that real quick. So in Indiana, I was born in Evansville, Indiana, but only lived there like during my infancy. We moved from there to Wisconsin, and my family lived in Wisconsin, Marshfield, Wisconsin, for like, I think 9 months. I have no memory of it. And then we moved to Grosse Pointe, Michigan, and lived in Grosse Pointe, Michigan for a year or two. Again, have no memory of that. And then we moved to Jeffersonville, Indiana, which is on the Ohio River directly across from Louisville, Kentucky. And we lived in Jeffersonville until halfway through my sophomore year of high school, and then we moved to Hilton Head Island in South Carolina, and Hilton Head is where I graduated from high school. From there, I went back to Evansville and spent 1 year at the University of Evansville, and then I transferred to Clemson University, and again lived in South Carolina, in northern South Carolina at Clemson. So that's kind of how, there you go. So the answer is Evansville, Jeffersonville, and Hilton Head Island, and Clemson are the places I've lived in Indiana and South Carolina. Hello, Tina in Las Vegas. I'll actually be pretty close to you. I don't think we're gonna go that far south. I think we're going more across the top, but we'll get close. Northwest Indiana. Northwest Indiana is getting close to Gary, um, which I've been to Gary. I drove through Gary. I never stopped in Gary, but I've been up there. Only the very original Mickey Mouse is in the public domain. All of his, yeah, it's Steamboat Willie, Mickey. Yeah, you can slap Steamboat Willie Mickey on anything you want, and I have seen it. I have already seen quite a bit of it. I still think we should protect designers more. I don't know how I'd feel if I put so much work in one pattern for someone to pass it as theirs. Go Tigers. So it would be nice, but it would literally require rewriting of US copyright law. And that's not going to happen because they're not going to consider it to be important. It's just a matter of supporting designers is the way you do that. The way you can support designers is obviously first and foremost purchase their patterns. Okay? Once you've purchased the patterns, if you are feeling so moved, you knit something from the pattern. If you take pictures while you are knitting it and post on social media about said project, always tagging the designer, that is, you would not believe how that is worth almost as much as the actual payment price. And then if you show off your piece and say why you like it, again, talking about the people on social media is fantastic. Now, if you're not in a position to buy a pattern, which is totally understandable, and everybody is at different places in their life at different times, simply sharing like I think every like Ravelry page, if you look at it, has a little share button, and you can share it to Facebook, you can share it, just sharing things that you like, that you're like, oh, I'm dreaming of making this, just sharing things and mentioning designers' work. That is a huge amount of help. And doing things like this, you're supporting me right now for being on my live, because this is part of my engagement with the knitting y'all knitters. So doing all this social media stuff is really, and sharing them. Like if I make a video that you like, sharing that video, sharing a link to that video, that is definitely something that is really, really beneficial, especially if you're in any of those like really big Facebook groups or Reddit groups or a group kind of situation, sharing that so a lot of people see it, that is a huge help. So I try my best to try to think positively about things. And while, yes, it's incredibly frustrating if someone like knocks you off, focusing on the positive things we can do to help designers, I think might give everyone else a better headspace. But I really do appreciate that you're concerned about it. Milagro. Okay. Oh wow! So Murin said your mom's family is from Evansville, and I know where Sumter is, and now you're in. That is absolutely amazing. If I see you at a fiber, okay. So I looked at it, and apparently there's a Seattle fiber, some sort of fiber fest, like in August. So I am really hoping that I can figure out where it is and maybe connect with people, because I very much want to connect with knitters in the Seattle area. I am getting excited about all kinds of stuff, because it's a whole new place. It's like moving to another country almost, except for I don't have to learn a new language. It's pretty much what it is. Yes, Flock. Elizabeth pulled it up. Yeah, Flock. I want to go to this Flock thing. You guys aren't even in Seattle. You know what Flock is. So I've never really heard of it. And then there's another one. I mean, I know that Portland has a huge, big deal, Rose City yarn crawl, and I think that's going to be interesting. I don't know. There's so much fun stuff I want to do. That is such a small world, Mirren. Oh, goodness. So it's kind of hard to sit on bed like this. But this works best. And I'm sorry if the vertical is driving y'all nuts, but my son is not actually here right now, and I had to fight with it to get into horizontal last time. So I was just like, we're just gonna go vertical today. And you know what? I don't have. Did I pack those? I don't have my. Lord knows where they are. My other pair of glasses, which is the one that allows me to see close. I'm really wondering where those are. So many boxes. I've packed so much stuff. South Carolina would have a Fiber Fest. I went, it wasn't a fiber festival, but a few years ago I went to the Greenville Knitting Guild had a really nice retreat, and it was a good size, and people, so I don't know how close you are to Greenville, but you might want to look in that area. This is really cool. Nitty Natty, I'm not familiar with that one. I packed up, the reason why we're doing this the hard way is that I packed up my computer well over a month ago. So I really have been completely out of touch. I do everything on my phone now, but it really is minimized from how, like, my ability to connect and to do stuff. So I don't know. I'm not really searching for YouTube stuff to watch. And the computer sucks up a lot of your time. Well, she was okay. So Trish, so you're saying she had a great review of Flock. She did Rose City Yarn Crawl. Is she in the Seattle area? Because that would be fantastic if I could meet someone fun. Okay, so Milagro, you are in Greenville. So Greenville, they have a knitting guild. I would be able to pull it all up if I had my computer, but I don't. I went and I was the speaker and I taught classes at their Greenville, I can't remember what it was called, but their annual knitting festival thing they do. Now it's not like a yarn festival. It's not like a sheep and wool. It's in a conference center, and it's classes and sitting together and knitting, and it's a whole lot of fun. And those kind of things there was a room with shopping and stuff like that. So yeah, if you're in Greenville, check that out. You might be able to connect with the Knitting Guild itself and have their other activities that they are doing. I love the Atlanta Knitting Guild. For the years I was in Atlanta, near and dear to my heart. They did absolutely amazing things. I was very saddened when I got here to Sarasota and there really isn't a knitting guild in this specific area. There's one like an hour south and one like an hour north, so I never really managed to do that. I'm going to be trying my best to hook up with the Seattle Knitting Guild and see how that pans out. So knitting guilds are a fantastic place to learn about all that kind of stuff. Nope, I packed everything, Karen. I packed absolutely everything. No knitting, and actually I haven't had anything to knit, and I was actually thinking about some stuff, and it is a little weird to not have it. I haven't quite started going into withdrawals about it, but I kind of think it's going to be a good thing for me that I took a little bit of a break. So when we get to Seattle, maybe the juices will get going. It'll be fun once I get things unpacked. She did a van tour called United Skeins of America. Oh my gosh, she is a much, much more motivated YouTuber than I am. And that's something, I'm trying to think if this channel, if YouTube, what I do with YouTube is going to change when I get to Seattle. I definitely want to get back to making videos, but figuring out what kind of videos I want to make and all that kind of stuff. It's just, the thing is I know that everything is going to change, and it's going to be interesting. What exactly is a knitting guild? No, Michelle Hamilton, I don't think I have ever really explained it. The word guild is based on like really actually guilds go back into like the medieval times. And what it is a guild is a group of people, a group of artisans that all do the same art essentially. So there's like a baking guild and a brewing guild, and it's people who are focused on one specific craft, if you will. And so that term has been used for a lot. There are crochet guilds and there are knitting guilds, there are weaving guilds. They're just a group of people who come together to focus on the learning, improving, and socializing is essentially what my experience with guilds have been. Most guilds typically have a charitable aspect, but they usually have a charitable aspect, an educational aspect, a social aspect, and you usually have to pay dues. But like, I think that, and the dues, what they are typically going to be used for is paying for meeting space, because most cities do not have free meeting spaces where you can have large numbers of people. If you have smaller knitting groups, like if you're only expecting anywhere in the like 8 to 12 people, a really great place that you can usually find to meet is in public libraries, or people meet in like Paneras or other accessible restaurants and things like that. But those are places where when you get into them, you have to pay for something to have the honor of sitting in this spot. I had a group of friends that I used to meet with, two groups of friends in Atlanta. I had two different groups, and they met. One met at a Korean bakery that was open until midnight, and we would go and do that. And then there was another one where we pretty much met at a bar that had nerdy trivia that night, and we would sit and knit and play the nerdy trivia. So those are groups. But guilds are a more formal structure. They're going to have a president and a vice president and a treasurer and a librarian and all those kind of things. They may or may not, but frequently will have a library of knitting related books that they can loan to their members. So what you're paying for when you pay your dues is usually the meeting place and maybe maintenance of those, maintenance of the library, things like that. Typically they have like a monthly meeting, and there's going to be like a programming situation where they've planned a speaker or an activity or any number of things that you might be doing. So it's just, that's what a guild is. A knitting guild is a bunch of people getting together to socialize, but also learn about knitting and have knitting activities. And again, like in Atlanta, there were dozens and dozens of smaller knitting groups that met on a weekly basis, and they just hang out and they go to the Barnes and Noble. We had the Noble Knitters that hung out at Barnes and Noble, and it was all over the city. But once a month, we'd get like 60 to 80 people all in this one church that had a big gymnasium, and we would get together and we would, as I said, do charitable things and all kinds of fun stuff. And like what I talked about with the Greenville, we had in Atlanta an annual thing where we brought in a superstar knitter, and we planned an event around that where they would come in on a Thursday night and speak, and then we'd have classes on Friday and Saturday, and they'd fly out Sunday. So that's part of what also the money we would raise to bring in and pay a speaker. So that is, in general, because all knitting guilds are going to function different. Did that answer your question? That was a lot of words, Michelle. You're right, Trish. There are a lot of yarny resources out there. Milagro wants to know if I have knitted other items other than shawls. So shawls are the number one thing that I design and knit. I definitely have knitted other things. I really, really enjoy knitting shawls, and it's because to me they're like painting a picture. They're a canvas. They're just a blank canvas on which I can play with color and texture and movement. So I really see when I'm knitting a shawl, when I'm designing a shawl, it feels less like I'm knitting an actual like useful garment and more like I'm creating a piece of art. That's just how I approach it. I love knitting fingerless mitts. I've designed several. I need to design more. Once I'm in a place where I can actually wear mitts, I'll probably design more. But fingerless mitts, cowls. I really like cowls, long cowls, short cowls, chunky cowls, all kinds of cowls. Hats. I have quite a few hat designs, and I enjoy hats. Um, and let me think. Hands, cowl. I've designed one pair of socks. I am not a huge fan of knitting. Socks are not my thing. So I really don't design anything that I don't like. I have knit a pair of mittens, closed mittens. That might change. I just didn't need closed mittens. I made a pillow once. I made a giant footstool once, like a big old Ottoman style footstool. I made a market bag, one of those. I have knit one adult size garment. I made myself a short sleeve tee, and I don't particularly care for making garments. It's just not my thing. I cannot see. I mean, it's the whole never say never. I cannot see any context where I will start designing garments. I don't care for knitting them, and I don't have any particular urge to design them. Oh, ponchos. I've also done ponchos. I've done capes. I'm just an accessory person. I like doing accessories. My running joke used to be that I don't do garments because I don't like weaving in ends, and there are too many ends to weave in when you have a garment because I have to use too many balls of yarn. But then I started doing a lot of color work, and that kind of fell flat because I have a lot of ends to weave in. But accessories are really what I focus on knitting. It just happens to be that shawls are the largest category of what I knit and design because again, it's like making art instead of a garment. It's like the anti-garment. Swanchos? Define swanchos. Yes, I've made scarves. Thank you, Elizabeth. I do make scarves. I love scarves. I love plain old rectangular scarves. One of my favorite things, maybe that'll be the first thing I design when I get to because we talked about the really lace weight scarf. I need to, the thing that's sticking for me right now with the lace weight scarf is that I need to figure out what yarn to use. That is not something that I have in my stash. And let me tell you, after packing my yarn, it makes me reluctant to purchase yarn. I'm gonna need sweaters in Seattle. It might be motivating. I don't know. I don't think I can knit sweaters fast enough for this winter. Um, so, so if you're talking about a swanso, you're like it's the poncho, but then the arms are down here. I call those like T-Rex things because I don't find them particularly useful. I'm not saying I'll never design one, but I have never actually knit one. I have designed several different ponchos, but they tend to be just the kind where it's like, I'm making a giant rectangle and then sewing it together because they're easy and straightforward. And a lot of my design is centered around something simple. Construction is not something that compels me. I am interested in texture and color and visual design, but making something that's like complicated to put together or innovative in a structural way is really just not yet something I have played with. See, I don't wear shawls, but I do pin them to the wall. Karen, good job. Yeah, it's the Swancho is not on my list. The Swancho is not on my list. Also not on my list, Swants, those sweater pants. Not gonna be making those anytime soon. And a lot of that is the things I design are gonna be the things I enjoy knitting. So you're not gonna see me, which is why I've designed one pair of socks because I did not enjoy knitting them. It's just not my thing. Cowls, though, I really enjoy knitting. I like knitting tubes. I'm a big tube fan. I like cowls because that's a tube. I like hats because that's a tube with a on the top. And I like fingerless mitts because that's a tube with a thumb. I mean, it's just tubes with stuff. I like tubes. I did the cape I did in my first book is really, it's somewhere between a poncho, but it's definitely, it's in the round and it's shaped to fit. So that is like the closest to like a shaped thing. It has multiple sizes. And I do like those. I like all kinds of stuff. Cowlettes, the things that are like sort of in between a cowl and a shawl, those are fun. Um, Wheel Trish, I love knitting ponchos in the round, top down with increases for the shoulders and then front, back, center. Yes, those are, I do. Dude, if we had my setup, I made one for Riker, man. You remember Trish? I don't know if you saw. I made that style poncho for Riker. He had one on. That is a great poncho style. Swants, just because you can knit something doesn't mean you should. Totally agree. I remember, it wasn't the Swants, but I remember when Stephen West released a pair of knitted shorts, which, you know what? More power to you if that's what you want to knit. But the thing that I remember looking at the Ravelry page, the thing that made me just keel over, crying, laughing, is that it said that it incorporated short row butt shaping. And just that those words existed, short row butt shaping, it just brought me so much joy. I'm like, those are the funniest words I've heard in combination for a very long time. I like words, and short row butt shaping is just a phrase that I never thought I needed in my life, but Stephen West gifted it to me. So I was very happy with that. Yes, the Stephen West, I believe Stephen West pretty much pioneered the swants concept. And I'm pretty sure his first pair of swants, he didn't really knit them. It was just a sweater that he put on his legs because it still had a neck hole between the legs. I remember that. You do want your butt sweater to fit well. Nobody likes a sloppy butt sweater. So that's just, okay, funniest words. It is tangent time. I love words. Some words are just funny, okay? And for me, there are some letters that are just funny. K is funny. Z is funny. X is funny. They're just certain letters that are inherently funny to me. Don't know why. It's weird, but it's funny. And there was a point in time in Atlanta where Atlanta had a hockey team. They were called the Atlanta Thrashers. And I remember driving my car and an Atlanta Thrashers commercial advertisement came on, and it was fairly early on, and they were just trying to convince people that hockey was a thing that existed in Atlanta and they wanted to. And so what it was is the commercial was really funny because it was a guy doing the Sunday, Sunday, Sunday voice, right? That announcer voice. And he was like going, and he was going through things. He was like, come see the cheerleaders. And then someone would, wait a minute, no, there's no cheerleaders. And then he would say something else that was normal in like a basketball or a football. And he would say something, and the guy would come in and he would go, no, we don't have any of those either. And then he goes, exploding Zambonis. And the guy's like, no. But those two words together, exploding Zambonis, has all the funny letters. Those two words are like they're two very funny words. And together, they're like the funniest words that ever exist. Exploding Zambonis. I mean, it's got an X. It's got a P. P is very funny. It's got the Z. And for some reason, B is funny. I don't know. Exploding Zambonis is just what I'm giving to you. I like funny words in my head. This is my gift from you. I don't know. It's from decades ago in Atlanta, but it was a hilarious. I was driving and I was laughing so hard, and I've never forgotten that ad. I mean, the Atlanta Thrashers hockey team is long gone, but I remember that ad. Zamboni is a fantastic word. That word with the I at the end, I's don't belong at the end of a word. So that right there is funny. It's Zamboni is a great word because it's got the b and the that and I don't, this is what goes through my brain at 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't even know how to do an exploding Zamboni design, Karen. So the thing is I do not, I mean, if you want like literally a Zamboni, it's just not going to happen. Because I don't do intarsia. Intarsia is not a form of color work that I enjoy. Hang on, my eyeballs are getting irritated. Intarsia falls into that way too many ends category that I don't like. So I could do something just named Exploding Zamboni that would be kind of esoteric and like y'all, it would just have to be a if you know kind of situation. I think Exploding Zamboni would probably be a cowl. I don't know how that would work though. I don't know. I can think about it though. It's a great set of words. Just use the words. There you go, Karen. That is, I'm sorry. I'm seeing myself in thing. I have an itch on my back and I don't know why. And I keep reaching back to scratch it. And it probably looks horrible on here. So I'll try to stop. Oh, Tina, that's fantastic. That is exactly. I don't even know if I can try to pronounce it, but that is a fantastic word. And yes, I run over those things occasionally. Milagro, I tried using yarn bobbins, but it knotted up so bad. That is one of my biggest beefs with intarsia. Intarsia involves managing all those little bobbins, and I'm just not here for that. I just it's not my cup of tea. You can make absolutely beautiful things with intarsia, and I have actually seen pieces that seriously. Hang on, my husband's coughing. He seems to have survived. I have seen pieces that have tempted me just desperately, but I can't. The intarsia is just not for me. You're all too focused on Zambonis to notice my awkward scratching. Okay, well, that's good. You know what, Michelle? I don't even know what the Atlanta Thrasher's colors were. So old. You're ambidextrous and you can't manage it. No, it's really bad. It's really bad. So, and I don't know what's going on because there's like a little spot on my back that's going. It's very irritating. It's probably like I itched it once and now it's a little hive and now it's like whatever. I need a piece of ice. Okay, does anybody have any knitting questions? Because we're kind of keeping it mildly knitting adjacent. But if you have any knitting questions, I would love, or fiber questions. I was thinking about, and I think I've probably made a video about this, but I was just sitting on my couch pondering something and thinking about maybe talking about the importance of when you're trying to plan a project and you're looking at a pattern. I feel like not enough people are aware that while yes, you can substitute yarn, it's your project, you can substitute yarn, that you really need to pay attention to the characteristics of the yarn that the designer has chosen for that piece. Because just because you substitute something that's the same weight doesn't necessarily set you up for success. You really need to pay attention to the fiber content of the piece, of the yarn the designer has chosen. You need to pay attention to the yarn structure, like what kind of structure that yarn has. And those are two really important elements that you need to take into consideration when you're looking at substituting yarn, and understanding that hopefully most designers are designing to the strengths of that yarn, and or doing things to compensate for the downside of that yarn. And the specific thing I'm thinking about, and I think one of the places where people run into a lot of problems, is cotton yarn. Cotton yarn does not behave like wool at all. Like at all. Cotton yarn doesn't act like wool. And people will try to substitute a cotton yarn into a pattern that is designed for a wool yarn, be it superwash or non-superwash, but they're trying to substitute cotton yarn even into an alpaca, something that is an animal fiber. And then they're not successful and they're unhappy with the results. And the best way to be successful with cotton yarn is to look for patterns that are designed to maximize cotton yarn. Look for where the original piece is done in cotton, because the difference between wool and cotton just cannot be exaggerated. Wool is grabby, it has its own ability, it has a memory, it has its ability to cling to itself, and it holds its shape. Cotton doesn't hold its shape at all. Cotton is just smooth. Cotton just, and the other thing is cotton is heavy, physically heavy, which causes it under its own weight to elongate. So when people design with cotton, they frequently design in elements of that piece to make the cotton behave. They're gonna like put in seams. There's all kinds of things and all kinds of tricks you can do. So if I can encourage you, especially if you're thinking about working in cotton, to try to stick with patterns that are designed for cotton, you're going to be a happier person. Just substituting it in is not necessarily going to work. So I just was thinking about that because I love cotton yarn and I don't think enough people knit with cotton yarn, but I think the reason they don't knit with cotton yarn is because when they do, they're unhappy. And it's frustrating. And I totally understand that. Okay. Trish, I did know that the end of my shoelace is called an aglet. And I also know this. I know the A-G-L-E-T. It's called an aglet, A-G-L-E-T. But I know that aglets have been called aglets before there were shoelaces. The aglet actually, when you're looking at medieval dresses that had to be laced up, frequently had a metal compression. Usually they were cone-shaped on the ends, and those are called aglets as well. And that's, I believe, where they were called that because they were used for that purpose before they were really used to lace up shoes. Ha ha ha, did I one up you? But also Phineas and Ferb. Okay. What is the best way to do color work that isn't complicated? Mosaic. Well, actually, the best way to do color work that's not complicated is stripes, because stripes are color work. You're using more than one color, it's color work. One step up from stripes, mosaic. Mosaic is a slip stitch technique where you are knitting stripes. So you're only using one strand of yarn at a time, but you strategically slip stitches, and when you slip the stitches, it stretches them across the stripe of an opposing color. And it gives you this illusion that you've done fancy, fancy color work. So mosaic, in my opinion, is the easiest form of color work. You do not have to deal with running multiple strands of yarn. You don't have to deal with bobbins. It's personally, and I particularly am excited about it because I wrote a book about it. It is something that I am enamored of. If you look at all my patterns, you will see tons of them are using mosaic techniques. The ones where I combine mosaic with lace are more complicated, but basic mosaic is one tiny step away from knitting stripes. So that is my personal favorite way. It can be knit in the round, it can be knit flat. And again, that's the kind of thing that it's like, so like stranded knitting is actually very challenging to knit flat. It's really designed to be worked in the round. That's why you have steeking. intarsia is very difficult to do in the round. It really is something that is more successful when you knit it flat. So that is another reason why I find mosaic, you can knit it in a round, you can knit it flat. There's really no problem whatsoever going either way. There's no special techniques you have to use. Yeah, it is hard. Cotton is hard on your hands. You just gotta have to relax yourself and do it in little tiny bits. Um, isn't there a book about the Knitter's Guide to Yarn Substitution? I have not seen that book, but I will look into it because that's definitely one that I would need to read just to make sure that I have all the information. I have not seen that book. If you can find it and link it, I'd love to see it. What's your best recommendation for a bunch of miscellaneous color fingering mini hanks? So I have, if you want a rectangular stole, I have a pattern called the peephole stole that is designed for 6 mini hanks, I believe, but a fingering weight, I'm assuming. But when we did the knit along for it, there was at least one individual who did it with like 20 some odd different skeins, little mini skeins of the Madeline Tosh unicorn tails. So essentially it's a little bit narrower than a stole, but a little bit wider than the scarf. It's a long rectangle on the bias and has very simple mosaic lace work in it, and you just run through the stripes. You would just ignore, because it's designed for 6 colors, so you would ignore the instruction for 6 colors and just change the colors whenever you felt like doing it. It's actually really flexible in that if you can do that, or you can like just get 2 skeins and do the 2 skeins and ignore the color instructions. I've also seen people who do it with 1 skein of solid and a bunch of mini skeins, so that 1 skein of solid stripes it in. But the peephole stole is definitely, of my patterns, a really good one. I do have a Fave 5 that is about mini skeins. If you go to my thingamajigger, if you go to my channel and you looked for the Fave 5s, you can find a mini skein Fave 5. I think I did one that was just specifically mini skeins, and one for scraps, and one that was rainbows, which is coming up. So that's awesome. So if you look at that, there are recommendations there. But of mine, I think the peephole stole is the best for mini skeins if you want to do that, if you want to stole. So Cindy, that blue, other blue, that's too many colors. That is way too many colors. Why does it have so many colors? I thought you had 2 colors for that kind of stuff. Okay, oops, there we go. Would you have yarn recommendations for baby knits that aren't superwash? Got a friend willing to hand wash, but she doesn't want plastic or superwash. So, I can't give you any specific yarns, and that's because I am in this setup where I don't normally, in one of these lives, when someone asks me one of these questions, I have a secondary monitor and I'm able to Google there and I can give you very specific recommendations. I can't do that right now because of my reduced circumstances. I sound like what is it? A 1920s woman. My reduced circumstances. So you can find, it's going to be tough to have wool in it and not superwash, because they're probably mostly going to be superwash. I do want to, when you're looking at it and evaluating, I do know of, there are some baby yarns that are wool nylon blends, and not nylon, wool rayon blends. But I think they're all, I can't, you might be able to find one that's a non-superwash wool blended with rayon, but it's probably superwash. Just to note, so like nylon and polyester, they're definitely synthetic fibers. I want you to think that, do not think that rayon is a synthetic fiber, because rayon is not a synthetic fiber. rayon, lyocell, all those sort of things are all cellulostic fibers. They're all based in plants. So if don't be scared of a rayon. Lyocell, there's a couple different names for it. Something like a sea cell. Sea cell is made from seaweed. They are rayons, but they're a man-made cellulostic fiber, which means that they start with the plant and squish it out up and then poof, yarn. I have a whole video on that, I think, as well. But it's the superwash that's really going to cause. I can tell you that whenever I have knitted a baby blanket, every baby blanket that I have knitted, granted I lived in Atlanta and in Florida, has been out of cotton. My absolute favorite yarn for baby blankets is Blue Sky Organic Cotton. It is a heavy worsted / Aran weight. It is very soft. It comes in absolutely beautiful colors. It makes an amazing ripple afghan, and you can find ripple afghans. I think Pearl Soho even has one that's free. But my favorite yarn for a baby blanket is the organic cotton. So now, is that necessarily something that is going to keep them like toasty warm? No, that is not it. But considering this day and age that infants are not supposed to be left with blankets in the first place, it's more going to be something that they play with and enjoy if they're not and like drag around like Linus. So my number one recommendation for baby yarn is Blue Sky Organic Cotton. I think they introduced a sport weight. I'm only familiar with the worsted weight. I think they introduced a sport weight, but I am a little out of the loop on that. It comes in amazing colors, and it's a really, really nice yarn. Okay, I'm looking at my thing. Karen, you had a 50-50 cotton wool. Nice. Was it, and it wasn't superwash. That is really nice. Yes, cotton wool I think would be a really great thing. It's going to have some spring from the wool and then the lightness of the cotton. I really like cotton wool blends. I'm trying to remember who made that cotton wool blend I really liked. It's the one that I knit the matching hat out of. Ken, not having my other computer screen is really frustrating. Yeah, the matching hat was in a cotton blend. I think it was maybe from Magpie Fibers. I don't know. I really liked it. It had a great nubbly feel to it. And there was one yarn that was a cashmere cotton blend. Very nice. Very, very nice. Oh, Trish, you have a bundle on Ravelry called What to Do with Mini Skeins? Nice. Mini skeins are fun. Okay, Scoop. I needed to push a button. Oh, you're going to add Peephole to your bundle. Thank you so much. It works really. If you want to go in and look, Amanda, I don't know what her Ravelry name is. If you go and look at the projects, you'll see the one she did that's all Madeline Tosh unicorn tails, and you can see how it's striped up, and she used all different colors. It was really cool. Okay, so besides washcloths, what type of patterns would call for cotton yarn? Okay, Squealet, thank you. It was really helpful. Yay! I'm excited it was helpful. Cotton garments. Garments call for cotton yarn. Cotton garments, cotton shawls. I mean, you can knit anything. Well, I'm not going to say that. I wouldn't really do. There are. So, actually, and that's another good baby yarn. Kobasi. Kobasi, from, assuming they still make it, from Haiku, Hikoo, Kobasi. It's actually cotton, bamboo, and silk. Kobasi is why it's called that. And it is a really excellent yarn for baby stuff. And it has a little tiny bit of elastic in it. And that elastic allows it to hold its shape in the absence of a grippy animal fiber. So Kobasi actually comes, and the reason I thought of Kobasi is that Kobasi actually comes in a fingering weight, which if you wanted to make cotton or plant-based socks, it's a good yarn for that if you wanted that kind of that kind of cottony sock, because it has that elastic in it and it helps it stay and keep its shape. So again, having that little bit of elastic in it helps. And Kobasi comes in a DK and a worsted, a fingering, a DK and a worsted, I believe. Kobasi is a really nice yarn, and it's a great summer weather kind of yarn. And you can make a baby blanket out of that one too, and that is a good one. It might have to be hand washed because it's got the silk in it, but it definitely falls in the no superwash and no plastic. I don't think elastic is plastic. I don't know what to make elastic out of. I would have to Google. Anybody know what elastic is? Okay. Oh my goodness, 200 patterns, Trish. You have been busy organizing. But cotton garments, especially if you want to knit stuff that you can wear in the summer, like cotton t-shirts are a really nice thing that you can make. So it's essentially what I'm wearing, but just knit out of cotton. But again, that is where you get into making sure that you're buying a pattern, that you're using a pattern that is designed for thing, because top down in the round is not the greatest thing for cotton. Seams will help support it and help fight the stretching, and also construction where like part of it is worked side to side and part of it is worked up and down, so it's going to stretch in different directions and maybe not have as much problem with that. But I mean, you can make a cotton neck thing. You can make a cotton hat if you want to. I mean, you can make anything out of cotton. And that is especially important for people who are allergic to and or prefer not to use animal fibers. Because I know people who just cannot touch any animal fibers, or for reasons of their own have chosen not to use animal fibers. So there's great cotton, bamboo, linen, hemp, all of these wonderful summer weight fibers. Silk doesn't really fall. Silk is not a plant fiber. We get into this every time I talk about it. It's made from the cocoons of a silk worm. So it like behaves. It's kind of like how tomato is culinarily a vegetable, but botanically a fruit. Silk is, for all intents and purposes, a plant fiber in the way it behaves, but it's an insect fiber. So it's not a plant fiber. It is not vegan. It is made by a living creature. But it isn't really an animal fiber because it's an insect. So it's a little weird. Silk's beautiful though, and I love working with it. Oh no, Karen, you are totally correct. Do not make a sweater with kitchen cotton. It will make you sad. And that is all, not all cottons are created equal. When I am talking about all these fun things that you can do with cotton, I do not mean peaches and cream. I do not mean kitchen cotton, as Karen has pointed at. Kitchen cotton, there's nothing wrong with kitchen cotton, but kitchen cotton is very specifically made to be very dense and very sturdy to hold up to use as a dishcloth or a handtail or any number scrubbies or any kinds of things. It is a not soft, very hard twist, but it will last forever as a washcloth. And they are great for that. I'm not talking about that kind of cotton. I'm talking about, like what I mentioned, the Blue Sky organic cotton or the Kobasi cotton. Even the Knit Picks Dishy is a softer cotton. It is great for washcloths, but it is not your utilitarian kitchen cotton that you are going to find in a big box store, which I now believe leaves us with like Michaels, that come in that little, looks like a spool, and like if you threw it at something, at someone, it would bounce off their head and it would hurt. I'm not saying there's no purpose for that, but that is not the kind of cotton I'm talking about that you can make anything you want out of, because it's just a really, really utilitarian yarn, which does what it does beautifully. Doesn't do anything else particularly well, but it does what it does amazing. The colors are also meh. Milagro, do I know any brands that are sustainable? Suzanne, I knitted a tank top with Burnett Handicrafter cotton and I love its durability. See, it did what you wanted it to do. Durability, not necessarily what most people look for in yarn. And I'm glad that you have a great tank top. But yeah, durability is what it is bringing to the table, and not being hot is my guess. So sustainability. No, there isn't, Deborah. There's no reason to hit somebody in the head. I was just saying, for example, sustainability is a very big question, because a lot of it depends on what your priorities are, I guess I would say. What is it that you are looking to be? What do you define as sustainable? Because there are definitely vocal opponents of the wool industry, because they see it as a problem with the husbandry of the sheep. And then there's the discussion of superwash wool and what it takes to create that superwash wool and the toxic elements that are involved. And then there are frequently the people who are opponents of the wool industry are proponents of the cotton industry. And while, yes, that removes the animal husbandry element from the question, the cotton industry itself is the thirstiest industry in the world. The amount of water that it takes to produce even a small amount of cotton is really, really high. And so for people for whom the availability of fresh water in general on the planet is a heavy concern, cotton is not a good solution. And then there are people who are very opposed to acrylic yarns because they're like, it's plastic, but their argument can be made that acrylic yarns are a positive thing for sustainability because the garments you make from them never disintegrate. They never break down. They never have to be replaced. So it's, if one acrylic garment can survive where you would have had to have made 3 separate wool garments, where is the sustainability? So my answer to that is I can't tell you what a sustainable, say here is a sustainable yarn, because I don't know what's important to you. And I don't know what you're looking for. So what I would do is encourage you, when you are considering, if this is something that's important to you, when you are considering purchasing a yarn, look into that. I do have very specific knowledge, because at one point in time I worked for them, of Malabrigo. And Malabrigo is part of this big international animal husbandry benefit, blah, blah. I mean, this big thing. And they are very, very active in ensuring that their wool is as sustainable as possible, but it also is superwash. And then there are people who get into the superwash issue. So some of it's superwash, some of it's not. So it's not. I hope that I'm trying to show you that I'm not trying to avoid your question. It's just there's a lot of moving parts going on there, and I can't answer what's sustainable for you because there is no definition of sustainable. There's no like one true like this is what sustainable is, because different things are sustainable in different ways. I'm really trying. So there we go. Yeah, hand-dyed cotton yarn uses more water in dyeing than wool. Yes. So cotton, you didn't know the fiber world was so political in nature. You know what? It's just as political as everything else. The fiber world is part of the world, and we all have to make choices based on what we can see that is important to us, based on what is within our means of accomplishing. So it's just, but yeah, there's a lot of different opinions about it, and I'm not gonna be here to tell anyone that their thoughts and their opinions are wrong. I mean, unless they're wrong. I mean, if someone comes and tells me something that is factually incorrect, I will factually correct them. But with this, there's a lot of wibbly wobbly going on. Hello, Kinsey. Sheep's wool is a very renewable resource, and they really do need haircuts. Yes, but again, they really do need haircuts because that's the way we have genetically engineered them to be. And when I say genetically engineered, I do not mean like with science and like lab coats. I mean by generations and generations and generations of breeding them to be that way. Like the sheep, the original sheep, didn't need anybody to shear it. Humans made them that way. So lots of arguments there. It's okay. It's okay, Milagro. I really appreciate that you brought that up and that you're willing to work with me and think with me on the process, because I probably think more deeply about this than a lot of people do. I think the majority of people, when they walk into a yarn store, go, "Ooh, shiny," and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But as a professional in this arena, in this industry, I have to think a little bit more deeply about things because people ask me questions like this, and because I need to know where I stand and what I'm trying to do. And there's so many moving parts. Because a lot of times these discussions, one of the things that upsets me about them is they can end up dovetailing into a level of elitism where people are starting to say that no, you can only use single source, hand raised, whatever that's sustainable. And if there's someone else in the room who is listening to this and financially they can only afford acrylic yarn, I don't want them to feel bad, and I don't want them to not knit because that's what's in their reach. So that's why I try to be very careful about these sorts of things, because I do not in any way discourage you to think from thinking about what's important to you and what you can do within your means. But I also try very hard not to create an environment where people feel that they are less than because they can't make those decisions based on those reasons. Am I making any sense whatsoever? I don't even know. I'm just talking, and my eyes are watering because I keep trying to look at this and it's not in focus. Yeah, there definitely is selective breeding for certain attributes. I love hemp. You're right, Deborah. Hemp nuance. That's a good word. Elizabeth. I wish there was more hemp in everything. One of the things that has always cracked me up, the Declaration of Independence is on hemp fiber paper because pretty much all paper made in that time period was hemp fiber because they weren't making cotton was very expensive to grow and they weren't making paper out of cotton at that point that much. It was a utilitarian thing. And some of the best rope is hemp rope. And that's like a whole nother rant. Flash are pretty. I can't say that I'm not a yarn snob because there are things I'm snobby about. But I know that's a failing and I admit it. There are certain yarns I won't work with. I won't work with novelty yarn. And I made a whole video about that. I'm not a novelty yarn kind of girl. I'm a little snobby about novelty yarns. They just drive me up the wall. But hey, good on you. And I say that, but then I did crochet a bunny out of eyelash yarn once. So I'm also a hypocrite, apparently. Okay, that was an interesting discussion. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Oh, what time is it? My glasses. So, any other questions? We've had some really good ones. So I've been packing stuff and running across all kinds of interesting things. And I'm really proud of myself because, we had a garage full of boxes that most of them had been like put on the shelf when we moved in and has never been touched since. And I think that roughly I would say that, so what we did is I made us make 3 piles. We had our pile that needed to go to our storage unit because what we're doing is we're packing a storage unit and then we're going to have a pod delivered to the storage place so it doesn't jack up our driveway. And we're going to move the stuff out of the storage. So what we did is we rented a storage unit that is roughly the same size as the pod we're going to get. And so we're packing the storage unit, and once it's full, we know that's how much we can get in a pod, and then we're going to have the pod delivered and do that. So the 3 piles were, this is the stuff we're going to put in the storage unit, this is the stuff that needs to be donated to someone, and then the pile that's just straight up garbage. It's like the garbage. Well, really, the garbage just went in the garbage. We had a separate pile for electronics recycling, things that were electronics based that needed to go to the electronics recycling because I'm not going to throw away those sorts of things. Like the bottom of my old lava lamp had to go. And I'm happy to say that I would guess that at least 75% of the stuff in my garage went into donate or get rid of. So 25% in the going forward. I got rid of so much stuff, so many trips to the thrift store. So much stuff gone. I sold stuff like on Facebook Marketplace that I could sell, but mostly it's going to, let me tell you, I got rid of a very, very large amount of the medieval garb I used for a medieval reenactment. Somebody who wants to go to the Ren Fair or wants a Halloween costume is going to hit the jackpot at my local thrift store because there's so many medieval garments there. They're just going to be beside themselves. Tina, any fun whips? Nope. All the stuff in my garage was not knitting related. All of my knitting stuff was packed here in my home in a temperature control and everything. So I already knew. Actually, wait a minute. I did find something. Where did I put it? I forgot. Oop, way too far back. Here we go. I found an entire box of swatches with like little remnants of yarn from early designs. So I do actually have a couple things that I can show you. Um, this, I only kept like 2 of them. This is the swatch that I made for Bitter Blue, my beaded shawl, one of my first beaded shawls. And this is one repeat of the shawl, and I put the beads on it. And what happened with this is I did this, and then I took and put a straight needle through like just these 2 tips and stuck it in my bookshelf like a flag. So this would hang. So I would see if the weight of the beads were going to distort the fabric. And because it had a silk content in it, it did not. So that is the little swatch for Bitter Blue. Hi, Lindsay. When did you get here? Yeah, old swatches was hilarious. I found so much stuff that I didn't know I had, Kinsey, you would not believe. Now, this one is the other one I was very excited to keep. This, Courant. Elizabeth, are you still here? Any chance, if you're still here, I could ask you to go get a link to Courant and link it so people can see it? Yay, Elizabeth's here. Yeah, if you could get a link to Courant, Courant, the big long, what's it called? The big stole that was in Twist Collective. If you could grab that and do it. Milagro, what can you do with swatches after you're done? Nothing. You can do nothing with them. You could use them to stuff little stuffed animals. If you do it all in squares, you could like put it together in like make an Afghan or something out of it, like a sampler kind of situation, but mostly nothing. Swatch blanket, there you go. But the thing is that most of my swatches are like actually in shapes. So there's nothing. I was keeping them for record. Let me just say that it was a whole box of stuff, and these are the only 2 I kept, and all the rest of them went in the garbage. You can be very proud. That is right, Karen, that you did swatches. Oh, Susan, did I hear you're leaving Sarasota? May I ask why you're leaving Florida? So, my son just graduated from high school, and he wants to go to the University of Washington. And we cannot afford to pay for out-of-state tuition for 4 years for University of Washington. So we're moving to Washington. And we are going to, my son will live there for a year. Hopefully he'll get a job or something, and hopefully he will then get accepted to University of Washington and be able to go to school there for a reasonable amount of money. Well, I don't know if I'm going to say reasonable, not stupid amount of money, because the out-of-state versus in-state is like quadruple. So that is primarily the reason. And also my husband is over hurricanes. He does not want to be around hurricanes anymore. He doesn't want to deal with it. And it's something that'll be a huge change for all of us. And it's kind of fun to do something new and different. Random style amigurumi. Nice. Okay. I think I might have sent Elizabeth on a wild goose chase. Oh, well, you know what? You can see this anyway. I was thinking I was hiding this down here, but you guys can see it. I can't see it on that because it's covered. So this is the swatch for Courant. If you look at it, I'll hold it up. This is the swatch I made for the proposal for Twist Collective for this particular pattern. The inspiration for this okay, I'm reading. I'm getting distracted by myself. It's going to be a huge change in weather. My son has said, I don't like hot weather. I want cold weather. I'm like, you've never had cold weather, but we'll see soon. Um, the mood board for this, one of the themes that they provided was koi pond. And it was all these pictures of gold koi, koi, orangey gold koi in these kind of moody water backgrounds, and some were like more Asian style paintings, but the colors that I pulled out of it was this I thought this coral was like koi, and then this dark teal. I really liked them together. So those were the colors that I went with. And then these I thought were the scales of the koi, and these are lotus flowers. This is actually an Estonian flower technique, and it's called the lotus flower. So I thought that koi pond, so that was the concept here, and that was what it is. This is my second real piece of mosaic lace that I designed after Golden Lion Throne. And what happened is my first question was, can I combine mosaic and lace? And I did with Golden Lion Throne. And then I was like, well, if I can do that, can I combine it with like the craziest kind of lace, which is Estonian lace? So this is a combination. These stitches came out of the base of these stitches came out of an Estonian knitting book. And I had to essentially invent 2 different 5-stitch decreases to get the colors to do what I wanted them to do, as opposed to just the norm. They would just normally knit 5 together. And I knit this. It took me 6 months to create this swatch, on planning and experimentation and swatching, and then finally getting it to work. And then this was the final swatch for Courant that I then photographed and sent in my proposal to Twist Collective. And the reason why I had asked if Elizabeth could get a link to it, did it come through? Because mine is not showing it. So I hope you guys can see the link, but I can't see it. It's being a booger head. But that's nothing new. If you look at the photographs, if y'all are looking at it, actually it's of a different version of this. I think you have to go to the Ravelry to see it. You can see the actual colors that they selected for the pattern, and it really shows you the difference between what the designer proposes and the designer's vision, and how significantly that can be impacted by the yarn choice that the third-party publisher makes. Because if you can't go and look at it, the yarn they chose was a beautiful yarn, but the colors they chose were like a reddish brown with a pale pink. So it looked very monochromatic. It was like a lightish tan color and then a darker, very rich colors, very beautiful yarn. Yarn has been discontinued, but lovely. Completely different from my vision. My vision was substantially more aggressive as far as the color choice went. Completely different. And this really displays my personal design sensibilities lean towards Art Deco and Art Nouveau. And I think that these color choices really show that, in contrast to the color choices that they made for it to be coherent and cohesive into the final magazine that it was for. So I just thought that'd be fun to talk about. So yeah, so yes, I did find a couple of fun things. So is this not, are you guys still there? My computer's doing weird things. I can't really tell if you're there. Hello? It really hasn't, it's quit updating on me, I think. Oh, there you are. Lindsay's here. Excellent. So, okay, did I miss any questions? Yay, everybody's here. You were just doing other stuff. Oh, you forgot it was last Thursday of the month. It's easy to forget that, Lindsay. Did I miss any questions? Hey, Harley. So glad you're here. Karen and T. Okay, y'all are here. I was just I was a little concerned that I wasn't iPadding correctly. Me and the iPad, we're not the best of friends. Okay, so I was very proud. I got rid of a whole bunch of crap. Very little of it was like yarn, like scraps. I got rid of yarn scraps. I realized that I am never going to do anything with the ball of yarn that big. And I am going to give myself permission to just make it go away. So that happened. I found, and the things I was like, I'd open up a box. Actually, I had like a whole stack of boxes that my mother packed for me. I don't know how many years ago. And I started going through it. I'm like, no, I don't think I need my cheerleading uniform from elementary school. I got rid of my high school Letterman jacket that was in a box. There was just a lot of stuff. I was like, no. I found a hanger that had my Brownie and Girl Scout uniforms on it. Like, I don't need that. I don't need to pay to move that to freaking Seattle. There's no reason. There's no reason for me to have that. Yeah, May went by bonkers fast. I give you permission to get rid of all those little balls of yarn, Lindsay. You can get rid of the little balls of yarn. They can go bye-bye. You do not need the little balls of yarn. I mean, I know it's hard. I know you're thinking, maybe I could, no. No, make them go away. They're taking up too much of your brain. Hey, Kinsey. Fancy Fiber Forum Donna. So I think I'm going to go with just Donna. I'm so glad you caught me. I'm about to wrap it up, but I'm excited you're here. Ooh, thank you. Some of my videos have been a big help. I'm so glad that some of my videos have been a big help. You are coming in at a little bit of a weird time. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do a live next month. Next month, I am actually moving across the country, and then I will set up and hopefully be starting up my normal video type schedule, and I'll have to find a new rhythm and figure it out. So things are a little chaotic. Normally I'm posting more videos, and normally I'm helping stuff more. And so if you ever have any questions, please definitely feel free to ask them in the Facebook group or comment on a thing on a video, because I haven't looked at those for a while yet. Again, I'm not on my computer. I should probably go look at those. Less than 20 grams, go. Yes. It's good to have a rule, Elizabeth. Donna, I am actually currently in Florida, and I am moving to Seattle. So I'm moving pretty much as far as I can move without getting on like a boat. I mean, I guess technically I could drive to Alaska, but that's not on my list of things to do today. My sister was living in Alaska for a while, but that's too cold. But yeah, heading up to Seattle. Okay. Oh man. I just realized that I haven't checked the comments recently because it's hard to respond to them on my phone. But that's bad me. You know what? Trying to avoid the hurricanes is a big part of it, Harley. My husband is over hurricanes. Oh, cool. Sister near Seattle. Deborah, what mode of travel are you partaking in? So we have 3 vehicles. So we need to get 3 vehicles to Seattle. So we will be driving. What we are doing though is we'll be driving two of our vehicles and then renting a large rider truck as well as renting a car hauler so we can haul our third vehicle, because the third vehicle is a sports car that I don't particularly feel like driving over 3,000 miles. Because I think that would more than double the current amount of mileage on it, and it's a manual transmission, so I don't want to drive it that far. Um, so we're gonna haul it, and we're getting the minimum sized panel van type thing that is necessary to be safe to haul the car. It's a little car, so it's not, I think we need a 17-foot, I'm not sure. So we are driving, it's probably going to take about 5 days because we will also be traveling with our pets, which is two birds. And so I think we're going to take 5 days. But with the 5th day being, we're going to be only like an hour or so away from our final destination. So we can get up and go and sign leases and do all those sorts of things. Yes, we're hauling the toy car. Thank you for asking great questions, Milagro. I like answering questions. I like talking about knitting. Isn't that why we're all here? We like talking about knitting. I'm hoping for no adventure, Deborah. I'm hoping for zero adventure. I'm hoping for it to be as boring as possible. Okay, so Donna has asked, has anyone ever knitted with Angora yarn? I'm currently knitting a scrunchie using Angora and held with merino. So I have never actually knit with it, but I know about its properties. Holding it with merino is a really good choice. Angora being, so is it bunny Angora or goat Angora? Because those are two different things. But either of them are a relatively delicate fiber, relatively delicate fiber that you need to be gentle with. It's going to have to be hand washed. It is not going to stand up very well to any amount of wear and tear. I'm going to personally say, I don't want to harsh a buzz. Having it in such a utilitarian item as a scrunchie does not, it's not going to do particularly well in that environment, but having the merino with it will give it some protection, give it some strength, give it some memory. Your Angora doesn't really have any memory. It doesn't really have, it's just floof. Angora is a floof, and that is pretty much what it is. It's a beautiful yarn, fiber, but it's a very delicate, gentle fiber, I guess I'm gonna say. Elizabeth, yes, actually we have signed and put the, I think we signed the lease. I don't know. We have a place we're moving to. We have a landing spot. We are going to be living in a like a complex, like a thing. It's a 3-story like townhomey kind of situation in a bank where, like, unfortunately in like the middle we weren't able to get an end unit. But the thing we really like about this one is that the way it's structured is it has a garage, and in the garage is a big, like on the same bottom floor is a garage and then a big den, and then the middle floor is like living room, dining room, kitchen, and then the top floor is 2-bedroom, 2-bath. And we like this setup a lot because our son is 18 and a half years old. He is moving towards adulthood, and what he's going to do is he is going to live in the den that is in the basement with the garage. Now he's gonna have to walk up 2 flights of stairs to go to the bathroom, but that was his choice. And so it'll give him a level of separation and independence that will hopefully allow us to help him towards being a more independent without just like saying, fly, be free. So Not empty nest. We're just moving them nest 2 floors down. The other thing is it's on the southeast shore of Lake Washington. So it's on the other side of Lake Washington from Seattle. And if the pictures are to be believed, we'll have a little balcony and we might even have a view of the lake, like a little view. But that it's, I'm pretty excited about it. Hopefully it'll work out. And one of the reasons, but one of the reasons we're renting is if it isn't our favorite thing in the world, we only are going to be there a year, and we can, if we really don't like it, we can find someplace else once we have a better idea of what the area is like what Seattle and what neighborhood we really want to live in. You're allergic to rabbits. Well, don't get any rabbits. Rabbits are like the only thing I'm not allergic to. So if it is actually bunny, Donna, that is really some of the, it's a super delicate fiber. It is something that generally you're not going to want to knit like an entire garment out of. Most of the time when I've seen Angora used, it's going to have been like added on to like cuffs or neckline, someplace where the silky soft texture of it is a plus, maybe like on the edges of cowls, at the wrists of mittens or something. I can tell you that when I worked in a yarn store, the only time of year we kept the Angora in a jar behind the counter, because if it was out where people could see it, they would pet it and mangle it, and we'd have to throw away skeins of yarn because people mangled them because it's so delicate. And the only time of year I had to pull that jar out is when people specifically came in and asked for it. And the only reason they were asking for it is because they were doing Intarsia and they needed to make Santa's beard. That's all. That is the only thing we sold Angora for, was Santa's beard. But recently there's this one designer who's doing these incredibly intricate knitted like deer and fawns and stuff like that. I think she uses a little bit of Angora as well. And again, like a stuffed animal that's intended for a display piece. Angora is just not, it just doesn't stand up to usage. It's a beautiful, delicate fiber. But then if you deal with people who raise Angora rabbits, they know how to make the yarn, and they can be, but again, it's going to be like a neck thing. It's going to be a soft thing. It's not going to be like a garment. My son has grown up. He's a good kid. He actually just went up to Atlanta with his friends. He drove for MomoCon, which is a anime and gaming arcade convention. And while he was there, the reason he primarily goes is because he does the Japanese rhythm game arcade kind of things. And he goes up for the tournaments because they have a lot of tournaments. And while he was there, one of the people who were supposed to be running one of the tournaments did not show up, and the people organizing the whole thing asked him to run one of the tournaments, and he ran the tournament. So those other people thought enough of him to ask him to take this position of responsibility, and my understanding is he did a really great job, and they were like, if you want to do this again, please let us know. At either this or the other Orlando one he goes to, and they said, if you want to come and you want to do this and help run these, then we will pay for your tickets and your hotel room. So I was so proud of him. I've been, cons are a big thing in my past, so I'm excited that people see he's as amazing as I think he is. When we have hotel travel whips, you know what, Lindsay? I have packed every single stitch of my knitting. I haven't had knitting needles or yarn for over a month. I can't, I'm too scattered and too unfocused too focused on this I gave myself a sabbatical. So I won't be doing any of that. I'm going to be listening to some Audible books, I tell you though. Harley, so it's one of the big reasons we're moving to Washington is because he wants to go to University of Washington, but he can't apply until we live there a year. So fingers crossed, he wants to go to University of Washington. He got good grades, he got good test scores. Hopefully it won't be a problem. Okay. Okay. I think an hour and 45 minutes is enough of y'all listen to me babble. I really appreciate you guys spending this time with me, and there were some awesome questions. I think we have fun, and I've got to figure out Exploding Zamboni, and it's going to be a ridiculous in-joke, but I'm good with that. I will try to keep people updated in the Watch Barbara Knit Facebook group and post if we are if I'm going to be able to do something for June. If I can't do something in June, then I will continue to like try to communicate with the Facebook group and probably Instagram and stuff. And I will definitely, hopefully we'll be able to do something in July. So thank y'all so much. So much fun. Again, if you have any questions or anything in the in-between time, we can definitely do it on the Facebook or as a comment on a thing, on a video, if I remember to look at them. Thank you all so much. You've gone many times in your life. This is my first, Deborah, so thank you so much, saying it's going to be awesome. Okay. I will talk to y'all, see y'all later. I will figure out how to turn this thing off, maybe, possibly. I think it's this button here. Okay, thank y'all. Ooh, and yes.